promoting a healthy environment. It's the air we breathe. Clean, safe water. Responsible management of our natural resources. We protect and restore for a sustainable future. Environment matters.
We're extremely honored. There was a lot of great competition there, and given that, we feel grateful.
A West Virginia National Guard installation takes the military's top honor for its conservation efforts. Plus,
I just love going to new places I haven't been and learning how to protect the environment.
it's the outreach program that's older than the DEP itself. We'll take a closer look at the DEP's Youth Environmental Program and what makes its participants keep coming back year after year after year. Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of Environment Matters. I'm Greg Adolphson. Kelly Gillenwater has the week off. The West Virginia Army National Guard's Camp Dawson was recently recognized by the Department of Defense as the top U.S. military installation when it comes to natural resources conservation. The DEP's Mike Huff looks into what it takes to be the military's best of the best.
Located in Preston County near Kingwood, Camp Dawson has the button-down look of a typical U.S. military base. At roughly 5,000 acres, it's considered a small installation by Army standards, but it pulls more than its own weight when it comes to natural resources conservation. Rick Cheney is the camp's environmental manager. He says it comes down to communication and integration.
That communication starts at the top down from headquarters. It's fostered by Training Site Command, and then it moves all the way down to all the entities on base: engineering, logistics, operations, range control, sustainable ranges, and environmental, and we all work together. Many times you see environmental departments that are segregated from the Training Site Command, but we have worked very, very hard to integrate our projects with their projects so that we're able to put together an environmental program that not only meets our conservation needs and meets our stewardship goals, but it integrates with the military mission.
One example of that is this recently completed pond project.
We knew that we needed some clay in order to remediate a demo range that's just off-site here. And we knew that we needed some clay for a bank stabilization project. And in order to not have to have that clay trucked in, which costs a considerable amount of money, we suggested that we use the clay down here because this is a really, really nice deposit of clay soils. And once we excavated all the needed fill for the remediation of the demo range and the bank stabilization project, we suggested that we make a pond out of that. Well, not only did we help other projects that were happening at the same time, but we integrated the construction of the pond by using Army soldiers that are in their annual training, engineering units. And when they would come in, we would utilize them to help us excavate this.
Not only does the pond provide enhanced wildlife habitat, it also adds a valuable fire suppression capability to a nearby live fire range. The Natural Resource Conservation staff at Camp Dawson has worked to eradicate invasive species like Japanese knotwood while working to reestablish native grassland habitats on former surface mine sites. The staff also works with the West Virginia Division of Forestry to complete in-house prescribed burns. Camp Dawson was one of the first military installations to establish an integrated wildland fire management plan back in 2007. The staff also worked with volunteers to build a wetlands boardwalk to provide environmental education opportunities for the community.
We opened that up to the public, to school groups, kind of a K through 6 type of age range. We provided an interpreter. It's about a half-a-mile boardwalk with interpretive signage, and that's been kind of a labor of love for us. The volunteers have helped us throughout the community. The Mountaineer Challenge Academy cadets have helped us. We've had soldiers help us out during National Public Lands Day, and that's open to the public and something where we can give back to the community.
The base is also home to a number of threatened or endangered species, which the environmental staff also manages. We
don't have anything like Hawaii would, but we do have some, and one of our rare species, threatened species, is the Allegheny wood rat. We also have running buffalo clover. That's endangered, a small patch of that. We have known presence, acoustic presence of Indiana bat. We have actually captured, mist-net captured some northern long-eared. We do surveys for the golden eagle as well as for the golden wing warbler. But the Allegheny wood rat is something that we do population surveys for in-house every year. They're really neat mammals. They have quite the interesting personality.
The environmental staff also works closely with the Division of Natural Resources, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the DEP, as well as environmental groups like Friends of the Cheat. They also partner with West Virginia University with an internship program with the school's Department of Forestry and Wildlife. In Preston County, I'm Mike Huff for Environment Matters.
Camp Dawson was established in 1909 on about 200 acres along the Cheat River and is named for former Governor William Dawson. During World War II, it was actually used as a prisoner of war camp. Beginning in the 1980s, the camp was expanded to include the state's second largest hotel and conference center and expanded training facilities, including live fire ranges. About 130,000 soldiers train at Camp Dawson each year, with that number expected to expand by 20 to 30% over the next 5 years. More than a dozen volunteer watershed groups were recognized for their efforts recently at the West Virginia Watershed Network's Watershed Appreciation Day. Earning top honors this year was the Greenbrier Watershed Association. The group earned a $5,000 award from a continued Dominion Foundation grant. The Greenbrier River Watershed Association is one of the oldest watershed groups in the state. Here's a profile of the group in their own words.
It's so beautiful. The upper reaches are just spectacular, unspoiled headwater streams. It's amazing. This area is the most biodiverse area on the East Coast, and we're right in the middle of it. So we're pretty spectacular. And as it gets further south, of course, you have more development, but it's still just absolutely beautiful. Our river is very long. It's 176 miles long. And so in the upper regions, we were very focused on trying to get wild and scenic status for our river. And it's actually ironic because now if we'd had wild and scenic status, we would not be dealing with the threats of the pipeline.
As it pertains to this project and our outreach around the Atlantic Coast Pipeline and the Mountain Valley Pipeline, as they've been proposed, basically the Atlantic Coast Pipeline would impact our headwaters in Pocahontas County, the headwaters of the Greenbrier River, and then the Mountain Valley Pipeline would actually cross the Greenbrier River in Summers County. So we see this as being an impact at both our headwaters and at a lower point in our watershed. And it's not necessarily the chemicals in the pipeline we're concerned about initially, but the construction itself. The increased sedimentation and runoff from open trenches on these steep hillsides are of deep concern to us. I think our biggest accomplishment is having a presence in each of the counties in West Virginia in particular that will be impacted by these proposed projects. And one of the goals of this project was to get ahead of it and make sure that our community members knew what was proposed, what the impacts would be, and how they could interact with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission in a way that had them participating in the process.
We're really fortunate on the Greenbrier River because we have the Greenbrier River Trail, and it runs right alongside the river, so it's an excellent way for people to get to the river and see the river. And also it's wonderful in the communities where it goes through, and it's an economic benefit to the towns through which it runs. So we're just really lucky that we have that resource to help people get out and enjoy the river.
The event was hosted by the West Virginia Watershed Network, a group of state, federal, and nonprofit resource providers who work closely with the watershed groups as they help protect and restore streams and educate their communities about the importance of watershed protection. Helping visitors to West Virginia choose more sustainable travel and tourism-related businesses in the state is the goal of a pilot program from the DEP and the West Virginia Division of Tourism. It's called Sustainable Travel West Virginia and was kicked off at the recent Governor's Conference on Tourism at Canaan Valley Resort. The voluntary program allows tourism-related businesses who have made a commitment to environmental stewardship to benchmark those practices against industry standards and promote their efforts to consumers through a rating system. Kathleen Panic operates the Gillum House Bed and Breakfast in Shinston, West Virginia. She says the benefits can be financial as well.
To me, eco is economical. It's green in my wallet. And if I buy in bulk, it costs less. If I limit my amount of water usage, it costs less. If I use perfume-free, dye-free detergent, I'm not going to trigger allergies in my guests. So we do things the way we do because it makes sense to save money and, save the environment.
The program uses a third-party database to generate the rating. For a look at how the program works, here's a short animated video explaining the process, produced by the DEP's Matt Thompson and Mike Huff.
As a travel and tourism business, do you ever wonder, how can I save money and attract new business, all while helping the environment and my community? Sustainable Travel West Virginia is your answer. This voluntary program from the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection and the Division of Tourism lets you rate your sustainability efforts. You can save money by reducing your energy costs and attract new business by marketing those efforts, all while helping the environment and your community. Best of all, it's free. Hooray! Sound too good to be true? It isn't. So why become a member? More than 3/4 of travelers surveyed said, given the choice, they would choose green products, services, and destinations. Signing up is quick and easy. Register online, enter some data, things like your energy and water use and how much material you recycle. Boom! You get a rating. Use your rating and membership in the program to highlight your efforts as a sustainable travel and tourism business. Save money and attract new business, all while helping the environment and your community. West Virginia. Wild, wonderful, sustainable.
Feedback from participants in the pilot program, which ended October 31st, will be used to gauge interest in the program and enhance it with the goal of full-scale launch in 2017. For more information, you can visit our website, dep.wv.gov. It's been nearly 3 years since a leaking tank at Freedom Industries spilled roughly 10,000 gallons of the chemicals MCHM and PPH into the Elk River, contaminating the water supply for hundreds of thousands of residents and forcing a do not use order that lasted several days. In late September, the U.S. Chemical Safety Board released its final report on the incident. The DEP's Jake Glantz joins us now with details.
Greg, the report concludes that Freedom Industries' failure to inspect or repair corroding tanks caused the chemicals to leak into the Elk River on the morning of January 9th, 2014. According to a news release from the Chemical Safety Board, investigators found that Freedom's inability to immediately provide information about the chemical characteristics and the quantity of spilled chemicals resulted in significant delays in the issuance of the Do Not Use order and informing the public about the drinking water contamination. The investigation also found that no comprehensive above-ground storage tank law existed in West Virginia at the time, and that while there were regulations in place that required Freedom Industries to have a secondary containment around its tanks, the company failed to maintain adequate pollution controls and secondary containment as required. Analysis of the leaking tank found 2 small holes caused by corrosion, likely resulting from water leaking through the tank roof and settling on the floor. The growing corrosion in the tank went unnoticed until the bottom was breached and the chemical seeped into the underlying soil and gravel and into the Elk River. The report notes that since the incident, West Virginia has instituted a number of reforms, including passage of the state's Above Ground Storage Tank Act, which, among other things, would have required the tanks at Freedom to be surrounded by an adequate secondary containment structure and require proper maintenance and corrosion prevention, including internal inspections and a certification process. The report also notes that nationwide, water providers have likely not developed programs to determine the location of potential chemical contamination sources or plans to respond to similar incidents, and suggests government officials, drinking water utilities, public health agencies, and operators of above-ground storage tank facilities heed the lessons learned as a result of the Freedom spill. Greg, the CSB report also recommends that the American Water Works Association, which represents thousands of water companies, communicate the findings of this report to its members and to emphasize the importance of emergency planning and communication with other entities to ensure timely notification of the public during containment emergencies. For Environment Matters, I'm Jake Glantz.
Thanks, Jake. The Chemical Safety Board is an independent federal agency that investigates serious chemical accidents and looks into not only the physical causes, but also any inadequacies in regulation, industry standards, and safety management systems. The board then makes safety recommendations to plants, industry, organizations, labor groups, and regulatory agencies. West Virginia is set to meet new, more stringent EPA requirements for levels of ground-level ozone. The DEP's Brianna Hickman joins us now with some information that might help you breathe easier.
Thanks, Greg. Ozone up in the stratosphere, say 6 to 30 miles above the surface of the Earth, is a good thing. It occurs naturally and protects the surface from excess ultraviolet radiation. But ozone down here at ground level is an entirely different thing. In 2015, the U.S. EPA revised its ozone national ambient air quality standards, lowering the acceptable level for primary and secondary ground-level ozone from 75 parts per billion to 70. The DEP's Division of Air Quality operates an EPA-approved network of air monitoring stations around the state, and preliminary data from the latest 3-year sampling period shows all stations reporting values less than 70 parts per billion. As a pollutant, ozone isn't actually emitted into the atmosphere, it's formed.
Dealing with air pollution, particularly with ozone, sort of like baking. There's a lot of different ingredients. There's a lot of different factors that determine what level of ozone you're going to have. So weather plays a big part, temperature, sunlight, and that's why you have what we call ozone season. Typically ozone's formed with a photochemical reaction, so you need sunlight, and so the strong sunlight in the summertime, higher temperatures, typically gives you your higher ozone reading. So our ozone season runs currently from April 1st through October 31st. We're almost done with this ozone season. And so that's when you have your most ozone formed. In addition to the weather, just like baking, you have your ingredients that make a difference as to what you have in the final result. So your ingredients for ozone are nitrogen oxides, and that's the products of combustion, and volatile organic compounds, and those are things like gasoline fumes, any of your carbon compounds that you can smell typically are volatile organic compounds.
Ground-level ozone is also a key component in smog. It irritates lung tissue and even affects the immune system. It's nasty stuff.
Absolutely. Ground-level ozone is definitely tied to higher mortality rates. It increases the frequency and intensity of asthma attacks. It's been found to be a factor in, like I said, premature mortality. So it is definitely something that we want to decrease, and by limiting the ingredients of the formation that form ozone, the nitrogen oxides and the volatile organic compounds, we help lower our exposure.
And here's some things we can do to help. Avoid idling. When you're in line at the drive-thru, shut your engine off, or better yet, just take your business inside. If you commute, look into carpooling. When gassing up, don't top off your tank. It just allows more fumes to escape. Finally, look into things like LED lights, Energy Star appliances, and smart thermostats to reduce your electrical demands. The less we all use, the less power plants have to generate, creating less air pollution. The DEP has air monitoring stations set up in the state's population centers. Cities like Charleston, Huntington, Parkersburg, Weirton, Wheeling, Morgantown, and Martinsburg. It also operates one in Greenbrier County to act more or less as a measure of background conditions. The highest ozone levels in the state are found in Charleston, Vienna, and Weirton, but even then, they're still below the latest EPA standards. Greg, overall, the air quality in West Virginia is getting better, and has been for the past several years. For Environment Matters, I'm Brianna Hickman.
Thanks, Brianna. You can check out the Air Quality Index at several of the monitoring locations around the state by visiting our website, dep.wv.gov, and clicking on Air Quality Index under the Air tab. It started with just one raised bed about 4 years ago, but like the vegetables planted there, it's grown and grown. It's late in the harvest season at Mary Snow Elementary School in Charleston, but you can still see the signs of a vigorous garden. Started about 4 years ago, the school garden began as a project for the special education class, but now about 2/3 of the school's student volunteers help out after school. Darrell Miller teaches gardening at the school.
It's good to see them out here, coming out here and playing a little bit, and I think they're starting to learn where their food come from and how to grow what they like. You know, instead of going to buy it, they can, if they like a certain kind of vegetable, they can start growing that vegetable at home. I think that's a good thing, and also it sparks conversation. It starts conversation about we didn't had all kind of different conversations of well, how does it grow and what makes it grow the fastest. So what grows the fastest? And so we didn't had a lot of different conversations off just coming outside and being in the dirt.
And it's not all vegetables. There are flowers to help attract the pollinators.
I like to have flowers mixed in with the vegetables. You know, we got a wildlife garden over there. There's mostly flowers, and we let some vines go, some weeds grow. They end up growing pretty, mixed in between watermelons. You know, and they all working together. And I think it shows you can grow what you want to grow.
And thanks to the donated use of a lot adjacent to the school, the growing season will soon be extended and expanded. Darrell is setting up a high tunnel greenhouse on the site they call the mini farm. Darrell says they also got a lot of help with the West Virginia State Extension Program, with materials and some extra knowledge through their Master Gardeners class. Urban farming is becoming increasingly popular in communities all around the state, especially in places where fresh produce is hard to come by. It's a DEP outreach program that's older than the DEP itself. The Youth Environmental Program has introduced generations of young West Virginians to things like conservation and environmental stewardship. Every year, the program holds its annual conference at one of the West Virginia state parks. This year's conference took place at Caney Valley. The program works to unite existing youth groups, everything from scouts to 4-H groups, school clubs, church youth groups, and others toward the common goal of actively participating in environmental projects in their communities.
I love that we get to just see all of the state parks that we might not have had the opportunity to otherwise, and see the environmental things while we're here and really have a concentration on the environmental aspects of them.
The conference typically features an environmentally related craft session along with a talk from an expert from an environmental field. This year's lecture focused on the importance of preserving wetlands, and field trips like this year's visits to Seneca Rocks and Dolly Sods.
I just love going to new places I haven't been and learning how to protect the environment. I do look forward to it every year. It's always a new experience.
And that's a common sentiment among attendees.
I just really love seeing all of the DEP people and getting to learn new things. There's always different topics I wouldn't have even thought to think about at these places.
Besides generating an interest and enthusiasm for protecting and preserving our natural resources, the Youth Environmental Program also offers enrolled groups more than $15,000 in cash and other awards, including a college scholarship for participating. To find out more, visit our website or follow the Youth Environmental Program on Facebook. That wraps up this edition of Environment Matters. Kelly will be back next time. We leave you now along the ridges and fields of the Cheat River Valley in Preston County. On behalf of all of us here at the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
800 people with one mission, promoting a healthy environment. We are the West Virginia Department of Environmental Protection.